The LA Clippers are now 47 games into the season, and they've lost 2 games in a row and are in the worst form of this season. A game against Utah didn't teach us anything. Another Kawhi and Paul George-less loss. What can we say about the Clippers at this point? Is it time to look at guys to walk out and new guys to bring in? Going to be talking about it all on today's Locked On Clippers. Yes, sir. You are locking in with the Clips. Thank you for making Locked On Clippers the first listen of your day. Your team every day. I'm your host, Darian Vaziri, in my 18th season as a Clipper fan. You can also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DimeDropperPod. And, of course, subscribe to my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper, for more Clipper, LA sports, and NBA history content. And of course, Locked On Clippers is free and available on all your podcasting platforms, including YouTube. So comment on today's pinned question. And my question is this for all of you. In games in which Kawhi Leonard and Paul George don't play, do you learn anything? Do you take away anything from those games anymore? Because we've had these games for years now, dating back to the 2020-2021 season, where there were games where Kawhi and Paul were out and the Clippers did such a great job. That's when we really started praising Ty Lue as a coach that could get the job done even with the stars not playing. Then obviously last season, the whole season was without the guys. So that was kind of just our team identity. And now this season, it just kind of feels like it's not teaching us anything anymore. But in this episode, going to be talking about the game, including what we didn't learn, what we did learn, if there was anything to learn, why this is such a problem, and why those games are just an absolute drag. And then going to talk about certain players that I think, honestly, it's time to have that tough conversation in the sense that it's not even about playing them less. They may just have to leave. And then I'm going to finish it off with talking about potential guys the Clippers could look at. I know there's been a lot of names thrown around recently, including one player that has haunted us for many years that would continue to haunt us in this game. And I'll be chiming in on whether I want him on the team. But anyway, Clippers on a back-to-back against the Utah Jazz, a team that Clipper fans are very familiar with in terms of as a franchise. The only franchise in the history of the NBA that the Clippers have played not once, not twice, but 3 times in the playoffs. Obviously, recently winning and breaking the second-round curse against them. That was so sweet. But the Utah Jazz, this was our 4th and final look at them this season. We lost the season series 3-1 with the only win coming at home at the Staples Center in one of those 3 games that Kawhi played in a row. Pretty sure he sprained his ankle against the Jazz, if I'm not mistaken, but before he missed a couple of games. So no Kawhi and Paul George because of the back-to-back. Kawhi obviously doesn't play back-to-backs. Paul George, because he just came back from the hamstring injury, they did not play him. John Wall obviously still out with the abdominal strain, and then Luke Kennard still out as well. So the Clippers went with the starting lineup of Terrence Mann, Zoo, Senior, the 3 guys that have been starting a lot recently, and then Nico Batum and Norman Powell starting in place of Kawhi Leonard or Paul George, whoever you want to do. Immediately, the start of the game was awful. Clippers were down 9-0 in no time. 2 turnovers right away. When I say right away, I just mean in the first couple of possessions, not like the first 2 possessions. They went up 9-0, and the Clippers called a timeout, and right then and there, you knew it was going to be a long night. It was going to be a long night, but one thing I'll say to the Clipper players, they didn't give up. Yes, did they come out with the right urgency to start the game? No. And how many times have we said that this season? I just did a whole segment on breaking down why the start was bad for the Clippers in the last episode. We have not had a good start, a good first half, besides that Dallas game, in God knows how long. If you can remember when the last good first half was that the Clippers played before that Dallas game, please comment it, because I can't even remember it at this point. The Clippers don't have the right attitude starting games. I also think for whatever reason, it seems like every team starts hitting shots before we do. Like the Utah Jazz were absolutely scorching from downtown last night. And I know that can happen sometimes when they're at home and Utah's a tough place to play. But they were 11 for 17 from deep at halftime. 11 for 17. 33 points on threes alone. And yeah, the Clippers weren't shooting as well, that's for sure. It just seems like every team comes out hotter to start games. And you could think, is that a result of the Clippers not being focused enough on defense to start games? Look, I mean, there were a couple of possessions that the Clippers could have done better on. I thought that, and I got to hold him accountable because I always defend him, but Terrence Mann, I thought in the first half, he was struggling in the screen and rolls with Walker Kessler setting the screen and he was guarding Mike Conley. Nico Batum started out on Clarkson. I thought that he was just behind on the screens, like literally behind him, facing his back. He wasn't on his hip. So when Terrence Mann is behind, or not just Terrence Mann, but if anyone is behind the ball handler in a pick and roll, then that means the big man is going to have to play two guys at once or step up and know that someone is taking his man. And the Clippers in this game, they were getting cooked on that screen and roll. Mike Conley was getting to the paint way too easily, and Walker Kessler had a couple baskets on rolls. I thought Zubac should have stepped up a little bit more on some of those pick and rolls in the first half. But I thought in the second half, they totally adjusted. I thought Terrence Mann started fighting over those screens better. You saw the Terrence Mann that you were used to seeing right on a guy's hip getting over the screen. Thought Zubac stepped up a little bit and made some good defensive plays, affected shots positively. But I think that in the first half, it wasn't as good. I also think Norman Powell's effort on defense was much better than in the Philadelphia game. I called him out. I said he needs to be much better getting over screens and communicating, and he really was. And on offense, the only reason this game wasn't a 30, 40-point blowout was because Norman Powell bounced back from his poor shooting night against Philly with a really good game against Utah. He was hitting every jump shot. And the main thing is, I think the Jazz knew on the scouting report, look, Kawhi and Paul George aren't playing. Norman Powell's the best scorer they have. What we're going to do is we're going to try to let him not get to the basket. We're going to give him the jump shot. So we're going to go underneath screens. They were going underneath screens, and at the top of the key, 18 feet away, 3-point, Norman Powell was making them pay. So shout out to Norman Powell. I thought he played really hard, and he gave the Clippers a 30-point, 4-rebound, 3-assist game on an astonishing 9 for 15 from the field, 60%, and an even more astonishing 7 for 9 from deep. But the problem is that he never saw the fourth quarter. So the Clippers were down by 10 after 1, and it was the Clarkson and Markkanen show. Jordan Clarkson, obviously, even though Nico Batum was playing some good defense, the way he was kind of swerving in those pick and rolls, snaking it, getting to the basket, step back threes. I mean, the guy is a complete elite shot maker. And Ivica Zubac, as I said in the first half, to me, wasn't stepping up enough on those screens. Why, you might ask? Obviously, because he's afraid that Walker Kessler is going to get the offensive rebound or be there on the roll, and that the rotation is going to be a small guy or somebody that's not capable of truly picking up Walker Kessler on that roll. And I think Walker Kessler is really impressive. Really, really good shot blocker for a rookie. Rebound, strong, good player they have over there. But Jordan Clarkson and Lauri Markkanen were killing. And Lauri Markkanen, who definitely should be an all-star this year, there's no doubt about that in my mind, probably should be most improved as well. Went from a reject and bust in Chicago looking like to going to Cleveland, having a good season there last year, was definitely part of that whole 3 7-footers thing they had going on with Mobley, Allen, and himself. And then was obviously traded this offseason. And it's funny because when the trade happened, most people were saying, well, Colin Sexton is the guy that it's going to be good that they have him. But Lauri Markkanen, after that Euro basket this summer where he was great for Finland, has just been on another level. He looks like he's gotten stronger, more confident. He's posting up. He's taking advantage of his size like a guy like Kristaps Porzingis, who I know he drew some comparisons to, never really has. And the most impressive thing about it to me was some of the sets that Utah was running for him. Like coming off double screens off the ball like he was a shooting guard. And he was catching it and working quickly and shooting threes. I mean, it was really, really tough to guard and very interesting to see. But the Clippers were down by 10 after 1. And get this, they never got within single digits for the rest of the game. So disappointing. They made pushes, but credit to the Jazz. They did a good job of just not taking their foot off the gas. And the Clippers went with 2 separate lineups in this game. They went with their starting lineup and then their second unit, which was Reggie Jackson, Brandon Boston Jr., Amir Coffey, Robert Covington, and Musa. So it was so great to see Musa again. And Brandon, of course. I'm always pro seeing them get minutes. The only thing is, Robert Covington was the last person to get off the bench, which is weird. I don't understand why he's so low in the pecking order at times for Ty. But, I thought they worked hard. The second quarter, the Clippers only lost by 2. In the third quarter, they also only lost by 2. But they just could not string together enough momentum plays. And coming up, going to be talking about why that's been such a big problem for the Clippers and kind of prevented them from getting back in this game. The Clippers never got within single digits. They lost it 103-126. Also going to be talking about a controversial decision made by Ty Lue to keep Norman Powell on the bench during one of his best games of the season. Going to talk about that coming up. You know what I really miss having? Built Bar. It's been a while since they sent me some, but you got to try a Built Bar because we just got through the holidays and a lot of people's goals are to eat healthier. And if you want to be like me and get some good protein in, then Built is the absolute move. They're not only just healthy, they're 100% covered in 100% real chocolate, so they taste good. They taste like a candy bar more so than even like a granola or protein bar that you think of. It has this chewy interior that's very flavorful. You just got to make sure you might have to use some floss after or brush your teeth. They come in unbelievable flavors like churro, which I haven't tried and sounds mouth-watering, peanut butter brownie, and coconut almond. I'm not sure how Built Bar does it, but they really do taste like candy bars, and they also maintain amazing macros. And what's even better is that they're healthy. Only 130 calories and 4 grams of sugar with a whopping 17 grams of protein. And you don't have to just go to Built.com. You can go to your local Walmart and get a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puffs. Or if you have a Sam's Club by you, you can run in and grab a 13-bar box with our hit flavors, brownie batter, and churro. You can thank me later. Go get your Built Bar. All right, let's continue to talk about this game for the Clippers. And I just want to say, I can talk about this game like all I want and why the Clippers lost and the X's and O's, but let's just keep it real for a second. The best player on the court is Lauri Markkanen. The best player after that is either Norman Powell or Jordan Clarkson. I'd say Jordan Clarkson is a more, he's a tougher offensive player to guard. I think he's more shifty. He's a better three-point shooter, and his floater game is fantastic. I just really like his scoring profile for that sixth man kind of role. I know he's been starting this year for Utah, but he was a sixth man of the year in 2021. And Norman Powell's obviously striving for that this season, but he probably won't get it considering the Clippers' record, which is now under 500, guys. 47 games into the season, the Clippers, who were favorites to win the title for many, including people in Vegas and stuff, are 23-24. And I think a large reason is this. I mentioned that in the Philly game. But when you have these games, these are games the Clippers organization is saying we don't expect to win. We're going to try our best, but we are okay losing this game if it means that Kawhi and Paul don't risk injuring their bodies more. We're okay with that. But you know what that does? Is it makes every game in which they play feel like a must win. And that's just not a realistic expectation for a team that in 4 years, I saw a statistic, 4 years, the Paul George and Kawhi Leonard of being together haven't even played 100 regular season games. I don't know if that's even including playoffs. It said they hadn't played 100 games, but I think that probably is including regular season only. But 4 seasons and you haven't even played 100 games together. And you expect everything to be all flawless when they're healthy. It just doesn't work that way. You have to figure out who plays well with those two, what rotations to use at what time with this 2022-23 roster. But because that doesn't happen and it still feels like we're throwing stuff to the wall and hoping it sticks in game number 46 against Philadelphia, when you lose that game, you go into the next game and it's like, oh, we're about to take another L, just piling onto the misery and just hurting the morale of guys like Zubats, like Terrence, like Nico, who have gone out there every single night for 2 years, 3 years for us, working their butts off, and then they have to deal with this. It's so unfair to them, honestly, extremely. So these games teach us nothing at this point, in my opinion. Nothing. all they show us is that the team has a little bit of fight. And mind you, yes, we didn't get back within 10 after the first quarter, but they didn't quit. I will say that. The players did not quit. They just could not string together enough momentum plays. And mind you, this Utah team is not a terrible team. They've been good this season. They've been better than expected. They're competing for a play-in spot, and that's because Lauri Markkanen, we didn't think they had any all-stars before the season, we as in NBA fans. At least I didn't. Lauri Markkanen, absolutely, considering the All-Star game is also in Salt Lake City this year, should absolutely be there. And he was the best player on the court, and he made it known from the second he started the game. Lauri Markkanen, 34 points, 12 rebounds, an amazing 11 for 20 from the field. So 55%, 6 for 8 from deep. 6 for 8 from deep, 75%. He shot better from three than he did from the field. And everyone in the Jazz starting lineup shot efficiently. Walker Kessler, 13 points and 11 boards to go along with 2 blocks on 6 for 9 shooting. Mike Conley, oh my God. Mike Conley, oh my God. This guy is going to torture us when I'm dead at this point. I mean, I just realized too that the Utah Jazz with that win are 24-24, so that means they have a better record than the Clippers now, which is absolutely embarrassing. Mike Conley, whose name has been thrown around in trade talks recently, if the Clippers could be looking at him. I'm going to talk about that in the next segment, but he's a historic Clipper killer. He's played for the two teams who I despise the most in the NBA personally, Utah and Memphis, because they've been the biggest thorns in our side for the last 20 years in my eyes. 17 points, 4 rebounds, 9 assists. It felt like he wasn't missing any threes. He still had a good enough first step to blow by Marcus Morris and Amir Coffey on multiple occasions, which in Marcus Morris's case, okay, we know he's not that good laterally, but Amir Coffey shouldn't be getting blown by Mike Conley. And he was getting in the paint too easily. He was a threat in those pick and rolls, and we just made him look too good. 17 points, 9 assists, 4 rebounds on 6 for 8 shooting and 5 for 6 from deep. Jordan Clarkson, we actually kept at bay after the first quarter or so. He finished with 16 points and 4 assists on 5 for 11 shooting and 2 for 5 from deep. And Malik Beasley also chipped in with 13 points on 5 for 12 shooting and 3 for 6 from deep. As a team, it sucks because the Clippers shot 44% from 3. 15 out of 34, but the Jazz shot 19 for 32 from deep, 59.4% from 3. So it's going to be very hard to beat any team on the road when they shoot that well from deep, especially a team like Utah, who have one of the toughest places to play in the NBA. But let's look at the individual performances for the Clippers. I thought that they really struggled to make momentum plays. And what I mean by that is I think the Clippers throughout the season have really struggled to make the little plays that start big runs. The Clippers last year and in 2021 were pretty known for making big runs, putting big runs together. And this season, they've really struggled to make those big runs, those big flurries, hit those timely threes that are just going to make the crowd go nuts and stuff like that. Like, I'll give an example. Marcus Morris, by the way, just another poor performance. It's kind of become like he has one good quarter out of the 4, and we've become accustomed to that, and that one quarter gives the coaching staff hope that, like, he's still decent. But to me, there's absolutely no way that Marcus Morris should be playing more minutes than Nico Batum anymore. I mentioned that last episode. This game, they got the same amount of minutes. But he honestly shouldn't be starting anymore. Because in my opinion, guys, and that's my takeaway from this, that Marcus Morris shouldn't be starting and the Clippers are not making enough momentum plays to build runs when it counts. And Marcus Morris, players that when they're not hitting have no other effect to the game, should not be starting on championship teams. That's my opinion. Those guys are sixth man kind of players, guys that only get buckets and do nothing else. And that's where he should be, off the bench. That's exactly why I wanted Nico starting before the season even began. If you go back and see what I said the starting lineup and the rotation should be in the preseason episodes, I said Nico Batum should start because I think his skill set is a complementary role player skill set to championship teams. He knocks down open shots, he defends, he moves without the ball, he's active, he makes little plays. When I was watching the game last night in the first quarter and I was looking at the body language, Terrence Mann looks like he's trying. He wasn't playing very well in the beginning, but he was trying. Zubats, he looked a little slow, but I know Zeus still tries. And then Norman Powell was obviously playing harder. It was so evident. But Marcus Morris is the one guy I'm looking at. Like, it's just too cool for school. He's not anywhere on defense. He's not on the glass. Like, it's just not enough effort for me. And I think his spot belongs on the bench. I wouldn't mind him coming off the bench and getting minutes. I really wouldn't. Because I think you can always use some bucket getters off the bench. I really do. But I think that he should be pulled from the starting lineup. His minutes should be severely reduced because 3 for 14 from the field, didn't contribute really in any other facet. 1 for 4 from deep. He had 10 points, but it just wasn't enough. And it just overall, like, there was a huge play. The Clippers could have made it a 10-point game, and they were really making a little bit of a run in the third quarter because Terrence Mann, Zubac, they were starting to get some stops. And Marcus Morris missed like a point-blank layup, point-blank on a fast break where he just couldn't really get off the ground. And it resulted in a dunk by Colin Sexton, if I'm not mistaken, on the other end. And there was another similar play in the late in the third quarter. Clippers were down by 13. Actually, no, I think it was the fourth quarter. Clippers were down by 14. No, it was the end of the third quarter. I'm sorry. Moussa Diabate, who, by the way, super active. He's going to make rookie mistakes. Like, he was committing some bad fouls and stuff like that. But he's going to make rookie mistakes. He hasn't played enough NBA minutes. But he's so mobile and active on the offensive glass. He got 3 offensive rebounds, which led the team. 3 points, 6 boards, 3 blocks, and a steal. He definitely needs to bulk up a little bit. But I really like the potential there. 22 minutes for him, 1 for 4. His free throws also need work. He was 1 for 4 from the line as well. But there was one play where he dove on the floor for a steal, passed it up to Amir Coffey, who went for a dunk, and Zeke Mbaji, that's Zeke Naji from the Denver Nuggets I was thinking of. Ochai Agbaji, the 14th pick, he's a rookie, 14th pick from Cleveland, so I'm guessing he was involved in the trade, had an amazing block on the Brewmaster, and that would have put the Clippers down, I believe, 11 points. And it resulted in a block and then a bucket on the other end, which made it a 15-point game just like that. So the Clippers just could not make those big momentum plays, even though Reggie Jackson, I thought, actually had a decent night. I mean, 11 points. Defensively was still not great, but 4 for 12 from the field. I know that doesn't sound good, but 3 for 7 from deep. I think it's really the three-pointers that stuck out to me that I just remember him hitting when Clippers needed it. Except there was one time where he could have made it like a 10-point game and didn't in that second half. But overall, lack of momentum plays. Marcus Morris just isn't it for me. Norman Powell, by the way, when the Clippers cut it down at 13 in the fourth quarter, I was expecting the guy who had scored 30 points through 3 quarters to come back in the game. But no, he never checked back in the game. Clearly, Ty liked what he saw, and we never got to see Norman Powell check back in, and the Clippers wave the white flag yet again. And what's the signifier of the white flag? Sadly, when our guy Jason Preston is in the game. I made a tweet saying that when Preston's in the game, I feel like throwing my remote at the TV. That's not a knock on Preston at all. It's just because when he's in the game, that means we've quit. So, coming up, though, gonna finish off talking about the individual performances of the guys, and then guys like Brandon Boston, I haven't really gotten into him, Amir Coffey, and then going to talk about any potential trades the Clippers should look to make, and obviously the possibility of Mike Conley, given that his name has been thrown out in Clipper trade rumors recently. Going to be talking about it all to end it coming up. BetOnline.net is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. You can get the latest odds and trends for every pro and amateur league out there, from pro football to college bowl season to basketball and soccer. Huge games on Thursday, including a rematch of the NBA Finals between the Warriors and the Celtics at the TD Garden. I am going to go with Boston. The spread is -6.5. I'm going with Boston winning by 9 or 10. The money line is -250 in favor. If you want to bet on Boston. Also, Brooklyn and Phoenix. Phoenix is +3. No Kevin Durant, no Devin Booker. I'm going to go with the Nets winning by about 6 or 7, so I'm taking that spread. The Nets are -3, and the money line is -155. And where you can do all this is Bet Online. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info. Just head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. Betonline, where the game starts. All right. So let's take a look at the individual performances. The Clippers, I can't believe that Norman Powell would sit on the bench for the rest of the game. It really makes me ask the question for Ty Lue is how much do you actually care? Like I know this sounds insane to act like they don't care, but I'm just saying relative to people like myself and fans that listen to this podcast every single day, that go to games and are dedicated to this team decade after decade, do you really care? Because this is not fun. I'm not having fun this season. I'm having fun doing this podcast and loving talking about my team, win or lose. But watching Clipper games this season has not been fun. It's very rarely been fun. Am I going to stop watching? No, because I'm sick in the head and I love this team with all my heart and soul. And I'm always going to have some hope and I'm always going to watch the games even if we're terrible. But it's not fun. And it's like, it makes me feel like I shouldn't care when you do this stuff like you did against Denver. Not putting in Kawhi and Paul for the whole second half and then sitting him the next night, voluntarily taking a loss. You know you're not going to win that game. Same thing last night. On Wednesday. Paul George, okay, he just came back from an injury. I get it. Kawhi can't play back-to-backs. I get it. But not even playing Norman Powell, who's having one of the best games of his season, because let me guess, it's a meaningless game in January. Every game is meaningless. And now we have 24 meaningless losses too. Anyway, let's talk about the individual performances. So the Clippers never could get within single digits. The Jazz won 126-103. I talked about the Jazz performances, so I don't need to read their lines. Brandon Boston. Again, he's not very efficient so far in his young NBA career, but he has no rhythm to go off of. So I'm not going to judge his efficiency or lack of it. He needs to play consistently if you want him to ever become an efficient scorer, especially when those shots that he takes and makes. He's a true bucket getter. He's going to take tough shots, and at his peak, he will be a tough shot maker in this league. He won't maybe be the most efficient guy in the world, but he needs to be on the court. And one thing I love watching Brandon, he's a lot taller and longer than you realize. He has great defensive potential. He really does. 23 minutes for Brandon. 3 for 9 from the field, 7 points, 4 boards, 3 assists. Amir Coffey started out slow, but one thing, I was about to come on here and say, man, Amir, even though he's gotten limited minutes, has really not been as good this season. And that's true. But thankfully, after 2 missed threes in the beginning, he made his third and then made 2 shots after that. So hopefully, if he does get to play in the future, he feels a little bit better going forward because I love the Brewmaster. 8 points for him, 3 rebounds, 3 assists on 3 for 7 shooting. Reggie Jackson, 11 points on 4 for 12 shooting, 3 for 7 from deep. I think he did his job. Musa, 3 points, 6 boards on 1 for 4 shooting. Rocco, he had a tough night. I honestly don't even remember him much. Only played 19 minutes, which was lower than any bench player not named Jason Preston, less than Reggie, 4 minutes less than Senior. I truly don't understand what that guy has to do to get more minutes. His plus minus is the worst, so the data won't do him any favors. But again, it's really all that lineup that the Clippers put out there, the Brandon, Musa, Rocco, that lineup is just Reggie Jackson having to create shots, either him or Brandon. And you know how Reggie's going to be with Brandon out there. He thinks, I'm the man. I'm going to run pick and rolls, whatever. It would honestly be nice in that lineup if we let Brandon run some pick and rolls and see if he's got any chops in that playmaking and pick and roll. But anyway, Rocco only had 4 points, 5 rebounds, 1 for 5 from the field, 0 for 3 from deep in 19 minutes. Terrence Mann just didn't have a great night. I think he played better in the second half, but it's okay. He's entitled to have one bad game out of like 20. 2 points for Terrence on 1 for 5 shooting, 3 rebounds, 5 dimes, 3 turnovers. And the Clippers did take care of the ball a little bit better in this game. 13 turnovers for them, which is not great, but it's we've seen a lot worse. Zoo, 15 points, 12 rebounds, 7 offensive rebounds. Thought he was okay. Think again, I have to keep saying it, but it's just doesn't really matter. It's going to fall on deaf ears. But when in games like this, Zubac should be getting the ball in the post 5 times at least. Like, let him work a little bit. And that's another thing I hate about today's NBA is that the post game is so frowned upon because it quote unquote inefficient. Yeah, because we don't teach it anymore at the youth level. Anyway, that's a whole nother conversation. Nico Batum, thought he was actually really good. 11 points, 2 straight games where he's knocking down his threes again, so that's great. Hopefully we can carry that over in the San Antonio game. 4 for 5 from the field for Nico and 3 for 4 from deep. And then I already said Senior, 3 for 14. But anyway, to close out, Sam Charania reports that the Clippers are looking to get a backup big and maybe a new guard. I really do not think the Clippers need a new guard. And the Clippers' problems are they don't have enough downhill penetration and athleticism. So why would bringing in Mike Conley help that? He's a great three-point shooter. He'll definitely add to our basketball IQ, but how good is he defensively anymore? He's not the same Memphis Grizzlies Mike Conley on defense. And even though he would be better than Reggie Jackson, better than John Wall, he doesn't really solve big issues. I still think if we go with Point Terrence, with Paul, Kawhi, Nico, and Zoo in that starting lineup, it would be great. Kennard, Norm, Rocco, and Senior, if he gets benched on the bench, and I'm totally fine with that. And then maybe a little Musa, or if we can get a backup big, we can play them as well. But Mike Conley is not the answer. And on another note, I don't want to see Mike Conley put on a Clipper uniform because he'll always be the enemy to me, and I just don't know if I can do it from an emotional perspective. Seriously. And it's not to the point where it's like he'll make our team so much better to that, like, I should say, oh, it's okay. Now he's on the Clippers. I love him. Nah, he's not that kind of guy. Like how Laker fans felt with LeBron. A lot of Laker fans hated LeBron. Then he came and it's like, well, it's LeBron. I have to like him now. He's on our team. Mike Conley, we don't need him. And then Marcus Morris, look, I love him. I love Marcus Morris. I think he's embraced being a Clipper so much. I think he's been really good to fans. In 2021, he had an inconsistent postseason run, but if you think we would have won that Utah series without him, you're dreaming. Game 5, he was huge in Utah. One of the biggest games of our franchise's history. Game 7 against Dallas, he was awesome. Games 3 and 4, he made big shots when they were down 2-0. And even though part of why we were down 2-0 is because he wasn't shooting well, but he made up for it. I really love Marcus Morris, but if he goes, it's not a big deal. It's honestly going to be a positive, in my opinion, depending on what the Clippers get. And I don't think if they trade Marcus Morris, they'll bring in someone that's a terrible fit, but I wouldn't mind it. Same with Reggie. And Reggie would be even harder goodbye because, he's become a cult hero here in Clipperland. But those two and John Wall, if all three of them go, I think the roster will improve a lot. If a couple of them go, it'll be sad, but it is what it is, right? I don't think many Clipper fans are going to be sad about John leaving because we haven't really built that connection with him. But those three right now are a lot of dead weight, personally. I would rather have Brandon Boston playing and Musa playing. Young, athletic, add something a little different to the mix. But it's crisis time right now for the Clippers. I mean, they need to get it together. The good news I'm going to leave you with is that we only have one more back-to-back from this point forward until the beginning of March, and that's January 28th and 29th. Besides that, now mind you, the All-Star break is in February, so there's a period of time where there's no games, but there's no back-to-backs until then. So besides that doubleheader or that back-to-back, Kawhi and Paul need to play every game besides that. They need to, or else we're never going to build the continuity to make any kind of run at all. It has to happen. So let me know in the comments today my initial question, and that was, do you learn anything new from these games without Paul and Kawhi anymore? Does it do anything for you as a fan in terms of figuring out this team's identity, big picture? So in my opinion, to close out, Clippers struggle to make momentum plays. Those games don't teach us anything anymore. Marcus Morris needs to play less than Nico, have his minutes reduced, probably benched, maybe even traded, just like I said before the season. And if it would be nice if the Clippers can get a backup big, but what they need more than anything is for Kawhi and Paul George to stay on the court. And with the fact that there's not as many back-to-backs for a little while, hopefully they do. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate it. I know it's been really, really hard, but the fact that you still rock with me, and even though in the beginning of the season, you could say I was negative, but I'm not even going to say I was negative anymore. I was calling it how it was, and now you're saying I was right, and I hate that I'm right. But I still have faith that we can turn it around, but it has to happen now. It has to happen now. I just don't get this pushing it off mentality like, oh, it's just another game. It's just another loss, just one game. No, it's not just one game anymore. It's 24 losses. So San Antonio next. We'll see how it happens. Obviously, the trade deadline approaching is going to make cause a lot of drama and stuff. So we'll be having more episodes probably on that, hopefully with guests that are a little bit more savvy in the cap and stuff like that, because you know me, I'm more of just a analyzing the games kind of guy. But make sure to subscribe to Locked On Clippers. Make sure to subscribe to my own YouTube channel, Dime Dropper. By the time this video is out or this podcast is out, there'll be a vlog on my channel of the Clippers-Sixers game. It's pretty cool. You can check it out. People are saying there was more Sixers fans there. You can see the video and see that that's false. But anyway, have a good day. The age-old proverb continues. Go Clippers. Thanks for making Locked On Clippers your first listen today. Now make your second listen Game to Game NBA. Every moment, every top performance, every result. Locked On Game to Game covers every game from across the NBA with local analysis that only Locked On can deliver. Follow Game to Game Locked On NBA, available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts.